All right, we got it. That's it. Yeah, so let's thank Mark Birch for putting on the Enterprise Sales Meetup. Mark was in Philadelphia a few days ago. He was in Atlanta last night. Now he's here. So, and it's a non-profit thing that he does it. Like, he's not here to make money. He's here to help us all get better. So it's kind of cool. He's on his dime, flying around the country, pulling people together. So. Big time kudos to Mark.
That's what happens when you sell enterprise deals.
Yeah.
You can travel around.
Yes, if you can learn the secret sauce from Mark, you can do this in 5 years from now. So, and Ryan in the back, Donahue, Ryan's kind of helped put this together. So Ryan, say hello.
Thanks to RingCentral and Chad.
Thanks for hosting, Chad.
I'm a customer of DiscoverOrg, so I'm wearing my logo here. So, it's very cool to be here. I've been a DiscoverOrg customer for years and years at different companies, and you know, this company's grown to an amazing level, and a lot of it is through account-based selling, right? I mean, getting into these big accounts, to your point here, that's where a lot of companies are going. Our company recently had, at this screen here about 2 days ago, an all-hands meeting, and we looked at the pyramid and where's the market. And the SMB part of the pyramid was $10 billion, and then the mid-market was $8, $10 billion or something like that. And then enterprise was more than that, $12 billion, right? So each section of the pyramid, the point of our executives was, you can't just leave one, right? If you're Amazon Cloud, you go after all levels of the pyramid, and that's important. But for today, what we're going to focus on, whether you're an SMB, mid-market, or an enterprise, you still need to be able to sell into accounts. So let's start with this. Henry, can you kind of give an introduction of your background? You know, how did you get into the, it's DiscoverOrg or Discover.org? You tell us.
DiscoverOrg. If I had a time machine, it would be something very different. But so first of all, thank you for coming out tonight. I'm really happy to be here. When Chad and Ryan and Mark asked me, I was like, well, yeah, let's figure out a way to get to them. Yeah, so DiscoverOrg, if you're not familiar with it, is a sales intelligence tool that's used by sales and marketing teams at technology companies, hardware, software, consulting. They use it for outbound prospecting, email campaigns, general account intelligence. So essentially what we do is we map out who's who within the IT, finance, and marketing departments. And we start at the CIO, CFO, or CMO level and map out in an org chart who reports to who. We have over 96% direct dial phone numbers on about 700,000 contacts. So you can imagine if you're doing outbound calling, how much more effective you can be. And then we refresh this data every 90 days. So we have a team of almost 200 researchers in Vancouver, Washington, which is a suburb of Portland. And they're on the phones all day, every day, calling into these accounts to gather and update the information. And then we surround that information with a bunch of intelligence on the accounts. You know, what projects and initiatives are they working on? What does their tech stack look like? Are they an Oracle shop or an SAP shop? Are they a Cisco shop or an Avaya shop? Are they a RingCentral shop? And hopefully
that was a little iffy right there. That was iffy.
They still want to know.
Pay extra to get that out of the database.
So you want to know who the Cisco shops are, so you can knock them out. So we founded the company. I worked at a similar company when I was in undergrad. So it was in 2001. I took a job at a company called iProfile. That was basically a lifestyle business that was doing around $300,000 in revenue every year, and we were able to grow that company from $300,000 in revenue to almost $5 million in revenue by 2006. And we added maybe like 3 headcount. So this was like a $5 million company doing like 95% EBITDA margin, and so the owner was just it was unbelievable. He was making loads and loads of money, but hated his job. Like, just couldn't stand coming to work. Was working 12, 14 hours a day, but didn't want to really build a business around this like great idea. And so at the end of 2006, I said, look, it's not going to be for me. We're not going to build a company here. I'm going to go to law school. So I went to law school at Ohio State in 2006. The company iProfile ended up selling to a private equity firm almost a year after we left. And then after my first year in law school, my co-founder called me and said, hey, do you want to start a business that's like this thing? I said no. And he said, well, even if you don't want to be a founder with me, can you help me figure out how to do it? And so, being a good friend, I said, sure, I'll consult on the thing. And so we started up in 2007. He said, look, even if you're consulting, let's be 50-50 partners. And we grew it out of a loft in Columbus, Ohio with myself and him. He moved over to Columbus. We started hiring Ohio State students to come to our house. We kicked out a law school roommate. By the time we left Columbus, we had about 9 employees who would come to our little house each day, and they'd come upstairs and make phone calls for us and do sales and customer success and research. We moved the business to Portland in 2009. By the way, we did this all bootstrapped. So when we founded the company, we both put like 25 grand on our credit cards, and that's really how it started. And we grew the company in a bootstrapped way until 2014. In 2014, we took some private equity money from a firm in Menlo Park called TA Associates. And then we put more money back into the business, continued growing it. In 2015, we bought iProfile, which was a nice little like circle of life. And then in this last year, we took an additional funding round from Goldman Sachs and GE Capital and a couple others. And so the goal, today's vision for DiscoverOrg is how do we build the largest B2B data company in the world, and how do we do it in a quality way? Because it's really easy to scrape a bunch of information from the internet and throw it out as a prospecting tool. That's not really an effective tool for sales and marketing people. And so the big differentiator for us is we have these 200 researchers who are cleansing that data and updating it every 90 days. So by the time it gets into your hands, we've already dealt with all the junk that comes with data. And then we've built workflow tools so that's in Salesforce and Marketo and all that other stuff.
So let's talk about, that's a cool background. I don't think I've heard that story before. So that's why these events are kind of more fun than a typical event where the vendor just pitch you all day, right? You're having a real conversation here. So when we were talking to Stacy Ward in the back a little bit ago, we talked about Rally Software, how they are using a certain tool, and then CA, you ended up selling that one. But then you gave the story of how you had to take the deal down to a certain size. Talk to this group about that deal, because I thought taking a deal from down to a third of the size that it was for strategic value, when you talk about enterprise selling, that's amazing, right? I think you need to think about those kind of things. So let's replay that.
Yeah, that deal, so CA was one of our larger customers, a big software company. It was an important account to us. And we had a not awesome customer success rep on the account. And when their contract came up for renewal, they said, look, we're not going to renew with DiscoverOrg, we're going to go with one of your competitors. And we were like shell-shocked. So one of the things we learned from an account-based marketing perspective is that if you align yourself with only sales reps, you're going to have a hard time renewing a large account. And so when we went to the customer success rep and said, what's going on here? He's like, oh, the reps love it. Like, okay, I get it, the reps love it, but they're going to love the next thing their VP puts in front of them too. Like, your job was to get like visibility in front of the people who make the decision and have the purse string to help them understand that the reps love it, because clearly they don't. They feel like it's replacing it. So the deal's basically actually lost at this point. Tell us we're going a different direction. And so we had the customer success head, myself, and the research head, basically just all hands on deck to try to save this account. What we ended up saying to them was, look, we know we're the better tool, but obviously we haven't proven that to you. We're okay with that, we get it. But look, look, we'll take your contract, the same access, the same everything. We're going to take it down to a third of the price for a year. And give us the year to prove to you that we're the better tool. And at the end of that year, let's gross up the contract. And so we spent a year on that account, and we worked it. Customer success reps were on it. Research was on it. The sales guys were chipping in. Marketing knew that it was a strategic account we wanted to win. And at the end of the year, we won the account back. It's larger than it was before the renewal. And that one of the heads of sales development for CA sent me an email saying, what a difference a year makes. Where we see the light, we get it now. But yeah, it was a tough pill to swallow. But we didn't want to lose the logo, and we knew that this was an execution miss, and that we could fix that if we just put some energy into it. And we restructured our customer success team in the meantime. But so yeah, good success story.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? So, okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Go back to 2007. I started a business at one point, and I didn't know anything about starting a business. I assume you were in a similar situation, right?
Yeah.
They don't teach you in business school, put $25,000 on your credit card and then move into a loft.
Yeah.
If somebody in the audience here is thinking, hey, I've been doing corporate for a little while, I want to start my own business, what advice would you give to them? Do you go do it on a credit card? Do you get funding? What do you do?
Yeah, so let me answer this question in two ways. First, I'll say the reason I worked at iProfile was when I went to college, my mom gave me $5,000 and said, yeah, here's your college fund, you figure out the rest. And so after my first year in college, I had no money. I sold my PlayStation online, got $300, paid some rent, slept on the floor in a house for a month, and I applied to every job possible. I was like, I wanted to get any job I could. And iProfile happened to be the first company that called me back. I was like, okay, I need the money. It's $12 an hour. I took the job, and if my parents were in a position to help me, or I had money, then this would have never become what it became, because my parents would have helped me out, or I would have waited for the perfect job, which I thought was at the MGM Grand, because I was going to be a hotel manager. And so thank goodness that I was desperate enough to need some sort of job to help pay for furniture. So I guess the first thing is having an opportunity to have some ingenuity and grit, I think is really important. So I worry about, we just had a baby, so I worry about that a lot with my kids. How do I make sure that they don't miss that opportunity in life? So that's just one thing. And so the second piece of it is, there will always be plenty more naysayers when you start something on your own than there are people who are like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. So I talked about this recently. So number one, you have to sort of filter out the noise. And then number two, I think there's a lot to be said about your internal narrative about the business you're starting and what you're doing. This is not just when starting a business, but really in anything. So we started the company in 2007, almost 2 months after our biggest competitor fell onto the scene with $4 million in funding and 40 employees. And iProfile got bought by a private equity firm. And it would have been really, really easy at that point to just be like, you know what? It was just bad timing. We started this company, but who are we to compete with this? These Goldman guys bought iProfile. This venture capital backed company just came on the scene. I've got 6-figure job offers at big law firms. I'm just gonna do that. This thing was just bad timing. And if I met anybody here at a bar and I told you the story about how I started this startup, but then these two companies got venture capital right after I started it, and it was just bad timing, everybody would be empathetic about it. They'd be like, yeah, man, that sucks. But great job starting that thing, way to go. And I think the internal narrative that we told ourselves was it doesn't really matter. We're still gonna beat them. We're gonna work harder than them. We're gonna grind every single day and come in here until we beat them. We're gonna beat them, we're gonna beat them, we're gonna beat them. And so we just kept telling ourselves that. Again, sort of what seemed like insurmountable odds, and we did. But I think one of the lessons there is if you're not telling yourself that, there's almost no chance you'll succeed. If you are telling yourself that, you still might not succeed, but at least you have a shot at it. And I think we just kept telling ourselves that until it sort of became reality.
It's funny, even the things like incorporation and, LegalZoom, and there's so many easy sites now that sometimes those things can be a barrier, like, well, how am I gonna get my bank account set up? Do I have to put my personal finances on the line? There's so many things that once you get going, to Henry's point, if you just want to do it, you just roll through those.
Yeah,
things.
totally
Just
roll
figure
through
it out.
this. Yep, you just figure, if you have to figure it out, you just figure it out. Like, all of that stuff just becomes, and you make some mistakes along the way, and at some point you get an accountant or a lawyer who tells you like, yeah, you sort of screwed that thing up. But, in the early days, like, does it really matter if you set it up as an S Corp or an LLC the right way? Like, not really.
Yeah,
You can
just
fix
get
it
some
later.
customers.
And I think that was our perspective.
So
We messed something
the
up.
topic for this meeting is account-based, everything. And so Topo, Craig Rosenberg, about a year ago, came up with the term account-based everything, right? So it seems like if you go back 20 years, enterprise sellers kind of knew that you focus on accounts, right?
Yeah.
You don't focus on leads, conversion rates. You go after accounts and people in those accounts. What do you think of the whole movement back to account-based selling? What do you think of Topo's model of how they look at the world, and how does your company look at the world?
Yeah. So I think, first I think there's a lot of, for a long time, still today, there's been a lot of sort of like marketing and sales sort of doing this with each other. And I think what account-based everything does is say, look, if we're gonna target accounts, and we're gonna sell large accounts or medium-sized accounts, there has to be some coordination between what we do. And I think even with the enterprise sales model, what ends up happening is the enterprise guy can write a message for a large account better than marketing can. And so the enterprise sales rep just owned the messaging around the account, and it was sort of like, I don't need your help. I'm just gonna own it because I'm meeting with these guys, I'm studying the business, I can get the messaging and the pain points right better than you. And so marketing sort of lost sort of leverage around major accounts. And so I think one of the big things that account-based everything does is, and part of the reason for this, I think, is there's like a digital revolution around what marketing is doing, and so their ability to affect large accounts is much easier to understand from a digital perspective. So the way we do it, and so we're just completing this exercise, but we look at what accounts do we think can spend multiple 6 figures or 7 figures with us, and let's first identify what the universe of those accounts looks like. And so that's a manual process. You're thinking about each account. You're thinking like, how many sales reps do they have? Is there a marketing use case? Who are those accounts? And so the first step for us is let's map those accounts. And let's say it's 100 accounts. There are 100 accounts we think can spend, mid 6 figures to 7 figures. So we map those accounts, and then the next step for us is to understand as much as we can about those accounts. And so if there are different tiers in account-based everything, the first tier in the enterprise space, you can be really customized and tailored around. Like every account can have specific messaging and a specific strategy. It's 100 accounts that are worth at the high end, $200 million to you. You can spend a lot of time crafting messaging, very specific custom messaging around those accounts. And then there's sort of the next grouping of accounts. And so in the next grouping of accounts, maybe you can't craft a very specific message at each of those accounts, but you can group them together in sort of bands. You can say, look, the companies that look like this, the companies that are north of 1,000 employees and in financial services, insurance, and health insurance, all have a similar pain point. And so we can group those companies together and do some messaging and marketing around those together, while we also group together retail and leisure companies. And we also group together, pharmaceuticals and high research type companies. And so once we do that, I think sort of the next step from from our perspective is, let's figure out the buyer personas within those accounts. So for us, we go, look, here are the 100 accounts. We can sell to sales. Within sales, we can sell to inside sales and field sales and account executive teams. We can sell to marketing. Within marketing, we can sell to the field marketers, the event marketers, and the marketing campaign people. We can sell to, and then there's this other group. So it's sales ops, sales enablement. We can sell to them. And let's have specific messaging around each of those use cases. And then let's augment all of that data, all of the company data with specific things that we can do in bulk. So if you're a DiscoverOrg customer, you can figure out very easily, like I said, tech stack. So now we can say, let's group these so we're looking at the universe of companies that use Salesforce and Marketo, and companies that use Pardot, and companies that use Oracle, and we can craft even more specific messaging around those folks. And you can do that in an automated way today, because there's so many technologies out there that can just append your data in a way that you can segment easily. So for us, then we segment by technology, by revenue, by industry, and then we segment the people by their personas. And then that's the way we start going to market from a sales perspective. So the sales side of the house has specific cadences, it's call, email, LinkedIn. They have cadences around those accounts. While marketing does retargeting against those accounts, they're doing LinkedIn retargeting against those accounts, LinkedIn email against those accounts. They're basically owning the digital world at the account level against those 100 accounts and then the next 500 accounts. And so that's really where you can really see sort of marketing and sales coming together and coordinating a bit. Because we're going to marketing and saying, look, we want you to do digital ads around these companies while we're calling and emailing them. We want you to invite these companies to webinars while we're in the process. We want you to find out what events they're going to be at and let us know, because we want to go to those events and meet them in person too. So it becomes a much more coordinated effort and everybody's involved.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first sat down with our marketing department, we have 400,000 customers, so very SMB focused, right? Kevin Williams in the back runs our SMB group. And so he's got a lot of customers. So we optimize the online ad spend. And then when you start to add the upmarket selling teams and doing the things that he's talking about, it's different, right? So they come in and they go, here's the chart of all the 18 different marketing campaigns that are going on. Which ones do you want us to continue and which ones do you want us to stop? Because now you're going to do some custom messaging, as he said, in the tier 1 and the tier 2s. Well, where do you start and where do you stop? But you can still have the air cover going on to the webinars, to the events. And so, but there's certain things where, the email department who was sending emails that weren't custom to the upmarket accounts, okay, let's put you on the events team, right? So you have to collaborate between the two departments very, very closely.
Yep.
Otherwise, the way our new CMO put it, I talked to him 2 days ago. He's the former CMO of VMware, Riyadh. And I said, what do you think? Like, are we going to move to an accounts with contacts, or are we going to still live in leads, right? We generally live in leads at our company still today. And he said, look, I look at it as how the customer wants to buy is how I want to market to them, and what generates the most revenue. If you keep those two things as your true north versus, well, I got to get really high conversion rates on my leads. Yeah, that's cool in the mass market and the mid-market. Maybe a little depends on how you define it, but not in your tier 1s and tier 2s. It's not necessarily about lead conversion. It's about how do I identify those 100 accounts, where's the most money that'll be spent, and what are the tactics that get me there.
Yep. And I think, I was reading an article from Scott Albro from Topo, and one of the things he talks about is like, this is the everything part. Means everybody's involved. So like our cadences around major accounts include a handwritten note from me, include an email from me, include a handwritten note from the customer success senior vice president when they're already customers. Because in our major accounts, there's an interesting thing that happens, right? We sell an account, maybe it's a 100-seat license, but there are 1,000 salespeople. And so that's a major account. It sits in our 100 accounts that are our major accounts we're going to go after. And so now there's a little bit different tactic there, because at least in those accounts you have some use case statistics that you can use. And so our messaging around customers is more use case. It's like, hey, Cisco's security side of the house, did you know your data center side of the house has built a $9 million pipeline in 3 months using DiscoverOrg? Let's talk to you about how you guys can do that over in security too. And so if you have customers in those major accounts, even that shifts a little bit. And then the senior VP of customer success is involved in the cadence as well.
So my company's $400 million run rate, your company's millions, tens of millions of dollars in sales. At what point do you tip over into account-based selling, right? Do you do it from day one, or how do you decide if you're making a decision to go?
Yeah, so I think for us, I guess it really depends on your definition of account-based selling and account-based marketing. I think for us, we always looked at, because we're a niche provider, or we started off as being a niche provider, we sold to companies that sold to IT. We were sort of forced into looking at accounts. We couldn't just go out there and just market to everybody, because what would end up happening is like what happens to us at Dreamforce, which is we get a booth, and then all we're really doing is qualifying people. They come by, do you sell to IT? No, great, have a good day. Do you sell to IT? No, great, have a good day. Do you sell to IT? Great, come talk to us. And so if you're not looking, for us, if we didn't look at it from an account perspective, we would spend the vast majority of our time disqualifying people. Nobody wants to do that. So what we were forced to do from the beginning is we have to identify accounts that sell into the information technology departments of companies. And so we always looked at the world in an account vision. It was like your big accounts that sell to IT, or mid-size accounts that sell to IT. Now what we didn't do was do like a real coordinated attack at them. And I think that what the account-based everything model goes, look at the world in accounts, and then do a coordinated attack at them. So the first time we're doing a coordinated attack is really this year, but we've always been account-based because we're sort of forced to be.
So everybody who's here heard of Jeffrey Moore, raise your hand. Right? That's kind of, you've probably heard of Jeffrey Moore, no? Crossing the Chasm.
Oh.
So yeah, everybody's heard that. Or Inside the Tornado, he's got a couple of new ones. Jeffrey Moore's on the board of a lot of companies where I used to work, where Eric works, Connect and Sell. Chris Beal, the CEO, always would say, look, if you can't put it on a list, then it's not a real market, right? If it can't be put on a list, it's not a market. And so you can't just say, well, yeah, my market's the US. Okay, maybe if you're a cable company or something, selling set-top boxes or cell phones. But generally, if you're a company like DiscoverOrg or ours, or most companies in this room probably, certainly TermScout with Chris, it has to be a discrete market. What was interesting that Chris says about Inside the Tornado and Crossing the Chasm, his whole goal in life is once you get to 50% ownership of that list, and you get to 50 plus 1, game over. Because then, think if 50% of this room own DiscoverOrg, then you're all going to convince the other 50%, you guys are stupid. CA uses DiscoverOrg, RingCentral uses DiscoverOrg. Why isn't Inside Sales Bootcamp using DiscoverOrg? And so, if you can focus on these smaller lists, make the list 100, and just work really, really hard with custom messaging, own it, and then you can start to expand, right? The bowling pin approach, I think, is what they talk about.
And you better believe, like when we close a deal at at Ring, well, not RingCentral, but when we close a deal at in the early days, we close a deal at Riverbed. You better believe we're going to Blue Coat and being like, hey, look at the success Riverbed's having, and you can sort of get that momentum from your customers who are willing to be case studies for you, especially if you understand like the market. Like we understand that in computer networking and security, we have over 35% of companies that have over 200 employees. And so part of the marketing message to the other group of companies we don't have is, hey, 35% of the companies in your space are using this. Let's talk to you about how it can benefit you.
Okay, let's go from, we went from 30,000 foot to 5. Let's go super tactical for a second. A month ago, I'm sitting in a conference room, and we're an OEM to Zoom video, right? So if you buy RingCentral, you get this platform that comes with it, right? It's branded as RingCentral. And so we discovered that this OEM partner of ours is selling into these big companies that have conference rooms where their technology is outdated, right? So if you have a conference room and you're broadcasting from that conference room, it's not connected to third parties, you can't have someone dial in real easily. It's kind of a clunky, messy system. So I'm in that meeting with our VPs and directors, and I text Henry and I said, hey, I expect you can help us go pull a list of people that have expiring equipment in their conference rooms. What do you think? What could you do? And so he goes, okay, how about this? We'll send a survey. Who did it go to? Fortune 5,000 or something?
Fortune 5,000.
Fortune 5,000. Within 2 days, I got my SEs to chime in. We have another product called Glip, so we collaborate back and forth, kind of like Slack. And so we collaborate on this back and forth, and we come back with these 5 questions. Henry's group sends it out to these 5,000 companies, and we got 86 back. It says, do you have conference rooms? Yep. When was the last time you bought? 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5, 5 to 10? Yep. Okay, are you looking to replace that lousy equipment that can't bring it? Yep, we got. So you can sort the list into 87 companies, and about 10 of them are just right in the sweet spot in our market, Fortune 5,000 companies. So from a tactical level, that's just one thing with the 700,000 record database that he's doing. Think of the other ones, the use cases that your business could do. So maybe, what if we pivot a little bit to the audience? Has anybody done, Stacy at CA, I'm sure you've done some pretty interesting things. Give an example of some time where you've used data of somebody, maybe it's a refresh on somebody else that you're competing with, or what could this audience learn from all of us, right?
Even something simple, for the ones that we've lost, we're a SaaS company, we do 1-year deals, and we've gone back and just said, let's see, who did not, they didn't renew over a year ago, so they've had a year on one of our, probably a competitor, and now we know that the renewal is coming up, we can market directly to them, like, hey, how's that cheap stuff working for you?
Yeah, so lost deals, Stacy said, right? The downgrades, Kevin's working on a project, he's identified 4,000 people who didn't buy, and the last 120 days, there's probably some low-hanging fruit there. Or to Stacy's point, the year prior, they were a customer, they expired, they went to somebody else. That's another good list. What else? Anybody else have a good idea?
Can I share one?
Yeah, go.
No, you guys want to hear me talk about it. So we automate this, and so we automate both lost deals, just dead deals, and users that move. And so this is probably our best one of our best lead generators is when a point of contact or a user who used DiscoverOrg leaves the company. We have a team in India who identifies where they went to. They send us a list every week that says, here are the users that we shut off because they left their companies, and CA didn't tell us like one guy left, and so that guy's license was still on. We shut it off for you, and here's where he went. So we get this list that goes like, here are the people who we shut off this week, here's the new company that they're at, here's their email address and their phone number, and it gets fed right into the SDRs to call them.
That's
hey,
brilliant.
Congratulations on your new position. I know you were a big user of DiscoverOrg at CA. Can we talk to you about bringing it into your new company?
Yeah, think about Riyadh that just landed here. How many technologies has he sponsored in his career as a CMO? Or AJ just came from Salesforce. He was the head of strategy. I bet he's been responsible for a lot of purchases. So we did that. It's reminding me now because we don't do it here. We did it at Connect and Sell. It was brilliant. It was one of the best campaigns, and it's all automated. That's the trick, is setting it up so that it's not manual lifting by the sales team, but it's automated.
Yep.
That's awesome. What else?
I have kind of a little bit more off topic. but more granular. So, oftentimes when you go into an enterprise deal, they start pretty small, right?
Yeah.
How do you start to, you use the example early on where you lost a deal because that relationship wasn't wide. It was good, but it wasn't wide across an executive sponsor. So how do you start, you get a deal, how do you as a CEO get involved, and how do you get your hands involved into some of the other other business units, especially on a large enterprise deal, you could have several different business units, in one business.
Yeah, so I get involved as often as I can. I like to not get involved until it feels like there's some momentum, because it's just sort of embarrassing for the CSM or the sales guy who's like, yeah, I'm going to sell a $2 million deal tomorrow, and then I come in and it's like, no. One of the things that works for us is we'll go to a little business unit at Cisco. And we'll say, look, your company already has a license. They didn't license it for you guys. We have a 5-person team in the Northeast. Why don't we do this? We're going to give you 5 licenses for free. Use it for 3 months. But track the heck out of all of the usage. And track your pipeline as it's attributed to DiscoverOrg. And at the end of 3 months, we're going to take that data and go up to your VP and up to their VP to present the results of what happened in the pilot. And so a lot of times we'll trade like free licenses for them to do some like business case work for us. Or if it's a company that's not a client, we'll do the same thing. Go, look, usually you have a data set fee. What we're going to do for your little group is if you help us with the pilot and put the business case together for us, we're going to just sell you 5 licenses for just the user fees. We won't charge you the data set fees, which is how our data is structured. But we expect you in turn to, 1, introduce us to the VPs, and 2, track the data and tell us what pipeline and deals you've generated as a result of this. Because it's so much easier to roll up to the VP and go, I want to talk to you about the $9 million in pipeline you're seeing out of your data center team in the Northeast, and how we can replicate that across your other sales reps. And that's the easiest conversation you can have. So if you have a product that lends itself well to that seems to work well for us.
Let's talk a little bit of technology to enable this process. So as you go to 2017, this year is the year of account-based everything, it seems. What's coming next year from a technology stack perspective that you see coming to the enterprise sales?
I think you're going to see, first of all, I don't think there's a great tool today to manage all aspects of an enterprise sale, or even all aspects of a sales development rep or inside sales rep's job. It's like fragmented. You're in Salesforce, then you're in Sales Loft or Outreach, and then you're in your dialer, you're in RingCentral, and then you're in your other, it's just, everything's just broken up. So I would imagine that 2017 will bring a lot of these technologies together to give you sort of like a full view of the companies you're targeting, the sequences they're in, what ads are being displayed to them, what collateral is there for them, dialer will be built in, the email tool will be built in, the data will be in that platform too.
RingCentral Full View, I think I just got the naming of it.
There it is.
Write that one down for us, Kevin.
Full view, it's good.
Full View.
It's better than Discovery.
Born on August 18th, 2016. I like it. So, has anybody heard of Charlie app? I suppose not.
Yeah.
Ryan has, Eric has. Okay, wow, excellent. So Charlie app is interesting. I'm in a pilot with my team until I learned that there is a slight integration between Salesforce and Charlie app. So I need to get marketing ops to sign off before we go live. yeah, but we will. But what it does, it's a Chrome extension, so it's a very simple plugin. They configure it. Think of all of the browsers that you open as an enterprise seller. You want to go to the LinkedIn profile, you might go to their job site, see who they're hiring. You might go to DiscoverOrg to pull in, what technologies do they have in place. You might go to, 20 different things. And now you try to train a sales force of 100 people how to do that. One person does it one way, one does it another. If you can have all of your top A players contribute to the build out of what tabs auto-populate inside of Charlie app, it's amazing. We spent an hour on the phone with the team. They all prioritize, stack rank, And so when you log into an account now in Salesforce, it just sits right on top and it builds out all these tabs and it does the automated research, almost like a bot that goes in and says, oh, there is no jobs page. Kill that one. And then it pops it. So it'll give you the best, most relevant information in a tabular format. And we're working with Henry to integrate the DiscoverOrg data in. So that's, that moved real quickly to the top of the list. People were like, I want LinkedIn, I want this, I want this. I'm like, remember, we got DiscoverOrg, and it was like number 7. And then everybody's like, okay, now let's do the ordering. I'm like, okay, DiscoverOrg's got to be the first one, and then we'll go to the second one. You got to stack rank. What do you need from a selling perspective?
Yeah, we just their CTO just talked to our CTO about integrating it.
Outstanding.
So you should definitely buy it since we're doing it.
Definitely, we need to buy it. So then another one that's interesting. Has anybody heard of Exec Vision? So they do call recording, and then you can listen to the calls. They're all recorded, and then you go back and you can coach your reps, or look at what was said, how it was said. The newest one that I came across recently in San Francisco, Curious.io with a Q. And so Sabrina's the CEO. They spent a year with about $1 million of investment to build a voice to text in under half a second. That's not the breakthrough. The breakthrough in Chris Field language is that they've taken this half-second conversion from voice to text, they built in artificial intelligence on the back end, so that if I'm talking to Stacy right now on the phone, it's converting both of our voices into text, and it's telling me what the next best thing to say
Jeez.
based on the prior best conversations that have been had inside of my company.
That's awesome.
And so it's very, very powerful technology. Yeah.
Does it work?
I saw it working live, right? I'm talking and it goes down and it converts it to text and then it pops up the next
Wow,
thing.
that's pretty cool work for Robert.
It's pretty neat. I remember, I saw the, anybody watch America's Got Talent? So this guy comes out, he's dressed like an Indian, and they're like, what are you gonna do? And he's got a big belly, headband on and everything. And he comes out and they're like, okay, and then he runs into the back, and then he comes back out, and he's got these two boards on his hand, and then they start playing that song. Gosh, what is it? It's the one with the hard hat and the men. What's the name? YMCA. So he's got a board on each side, and he's got like 3 people in front of him and 1 person in back, but they're all mannequins. And so he like moves to the YMCA, and I equate that to Curious.io, because if you can actually get a sales force to know what the best thing to say on the phone is, everybody's finally dancing to the same tune, right? They're singing from the same hymnal. So to me, it'll start in mass market, right? Kevin's team will know, and they'll be powered to the nines of what to say, and conversions will go up. But as most things happen, start in SMB, then enterprise reps at some point, 40% of their day job is on the phone. And so they'll ultimately, I think, be rolled some. They'll pick this up. It's pretty cool. Pretty neat stuff. What questions do you guys have? So, account-based selling, Term Scouts in the back. Thanks, Term Scout 2. They always bring the beer. They always bring the coffee. Chris, thank you for your support.
You're welcome.
What, these guys enable account-based selling through their technology as well. So, tell us a use case of something that you've seen recently.
We see a lot of upsells of kind of current accounts when you get a trigger for like a company that would be getting a new funding event or getting a relocation, and they get it on an account that they're already have sold or is an already kind of customer, and then have the ability to upsell it based on the event that we've sent them. So we see a lot of that happen on the ABM side. We don't do a lot of matching or like any of the structural work around matching up an account, but when it comes through, we're pretty relevant for an upsell or moving an account through a pipeline because of the event that comes through.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So, but we aren't really specifically trying to sell into that like budget or that market right now. But I think there are some use cases a lot of times when it is that account that's already in your pipeline and you want to move that forward.
How about from a structure perspective? I heard you say CSM and the rep, when a rep sells a deal for DiscoverOrg, do they get to see it through for 20 years?
No.
Or how do you, yeah, I mean, that's not pretty typical these days. How do you do that?
Today, the way it works for us today is you sell a deal and it goes to a CSM based on the size of the company and the deal. And so we have a series of names for the types, and so they all sound like they're the biggest or the most attention. So there's Premier and Gold and Diamond and Platinum. Try to figure out which
That's
one is
perfect.
getting the best.
Yeah, I remember when the CSM came in on the handoff.
You're in Platinum, actually.
I was like, wow, this really sounds good.
So the sales rep hands it over to the CSM, and the CSM, well, you go through like this education period. So we have an education team that is involved in the first 90 days, making sure we do like customized trainings and video trainings. And then you go off to a CSM who manages your account. Throughout that, one of the unique things about us is we have a live telephone account support team. And so if you're just in the platform and you can't figure out how to do something, there's a line you can call, and there's 5 people in Vancouver, Washington who will answer the phone and walk you through some. Oh man, I've seen some horrible. Every once in a while, I'll go like, give me an hour on support. So I'll sit and I'll take like chats or calls, and it's sometimes painful to watch what people would do. I had a guy who said, I'm trying to sell to companies in San Francisco, so is there a way to find all these companies? It's like, yes. And I was like, let me just see what you're doing. And I shared a screen, and he's in Wikipedia, like in looking up San Francisco companies, copying those companies, coming back to DiscoverOrg, and trying to match. He's like, I'm just looking for the banks in San Francisco. Dude, that's 2 clicks away. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't know if that's bad for our education team or bad for the customer, but anyways.
Interesting.
When did you start doing the, can I ask a question?
No.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, you
The
may.
handwritten note thing I think is brilliant. I've been doing that for a long time on accounts.
Uh-huh.
When did you start doing that? And I think it works great if you take the time. I've tried to teach a lot of people and mentor them to do it, but they don't want to take the time to write it out.
So we started doing this like 3 years ago, and it was mainly on the sales side of the house. Then, sales guys, no offense, I think can be lazy with these types of things.
Yeah.
And so again, we couldn't get everybody to do it. So what we ended up doing was creating a field in Salesforce called like Note to Prospect. And you could just write your note to the prospect, and an admin will actually handwrite it.
From you?
No, not from me. I write my own notes. If you get a note from me, I wrote it.
Okay.
But they'll write the note and send it off for you.
Have you heard of send out notes?
I've heard of companies that do stuff like
Yeah,
this.
it's pretty mixed. Send out notes?
Is it real?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's great. And you can, attach a picture, a photo, or it can be very personalized.
Similar concept.
Okay, I'm going to ask the Mark Burke shocking question of the night. Do you think 1 million salespeople will be out of work in 2020?
No, I wrote a whole thing about this. Like, no, I think Forrester's wrong.
2 million?
Yeah, 2 million.
3?
Well, okay, I mean,
When
this is a
did they
good,
do
this is a good question. I want to hear what you have to say, but also with the advent of technology, there's some really interesting things that might change our perspectives.
I think that the reps that they're talking about not having jobs are not reps selling any sort of like complex technology or even minorly complex technology or software. If there are 1 million reps that are going to lose their jobs, they'll be replaced by like self-service portals when people are buying like
Retail.
retail.
Yeah.
Yeah, retail.
Yeah.
But for Forrester to come out with that, where their market are like senior technology salespeople, I mean, who's going to buy a telephone system for their entire company without a sales rep being involved?
Yeah, a one user, of course. They can go in online, $49.99.
Right.
Click, credit
Yes.
card, done.
Yeah.
But
that's already
$1,000 probably.
We had a valet place up in Blackhawk. You used to go and instead of having like somebody do anything, you just go scan your card.
There was
Nobody
no
took
valet
your card.
attendant.
Nobody did.
That was
Wow.
good, right?
Swipe
Yeah,
it.
just
Sometimes
somebody
somebody
goes
goes,
and
you
gets your car.
have a car pulled
Yeah,
up
that
right
was
next to
good.
you.
But yeah, I don't think it's right. I think technology solutions will continue to get like more integrated and more complex. And there'll be a need for more sales reps and sales engineers who can walk buyers through how the thing is going to work.
How about on the prospecting side? Yeah. I mean, a lot of sales development reps, I call them sales development bots for a lot of the very, very tired and non-creative approaches to prospecting and generating interest. And there's a lot of interesting technologies that are coming online that are almost simulating some of the human conversations that go on in some of these early prospecting
Yeah,
conversations.
Conversica is one of the emails, right?
Yeah.
I just saw one 24/7. You heard of that? It's a chat that's taking on Salesforce.com's chat and LivePerson, and it's got a virtual chat agent that actually interacts with the customer for the first while until it gets to us, oh, you stumped the virtual agent, now let's bring Eric into here.
Same thing with Versica. Vendasys is another one. It's an email, does everything, it's all intelligence, until it gets to a point of, you ask for a date and a time for an appointment. You can have 8 of those coming in.
Yeah, but like, are you tracking how many emails your reps send?
Yeah.
You track how many emails? Well, that's interesting.
It's definitely, I think Mark brings up a good point here, because when you train hundreds and hundreds of people in an email protocol, you're going to get different answers. The top 100 target accounts, yeah, I need customized, and even the next 500 and the next 1,000, but there's a point where you can't do that human-to-human interaction.
Yep.
And when these bots do the emailing, it's amazing because there's humans that build the protocols.
Yeah.
So it looks and feels like Cindy's sending the message.
Right, I mean, I guess I can see it with email, but I think there's a reason why we all have SDR teams. It's because like you do something when you get someone on the phone. There's like different magic there that I don't think some bot is going to be able to recreate.
Yeah.
I mean, I could send emails till I'm blue in the face to CA, but I'm not going to land that account until I pick up the phone and I get someone who's willing to take the demo.
Ryan, you were going to say something.
Well, I was gonna say, so you don't track email, and that was just surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't track, like, I don't have a board I have a board that says how many calls each person made each day. I don't have a board that says how many emails people did each day. Now, I do think that email coaching is probably the least coached and most important thing. Because if you think about it, like, my rep is gonna send hundreds of emails this week, and I'm not gonna see like very many of those, if any of them. And he might be making all sorts of mistakes in that email, but there's still sort of like this big brother feeling to if I'm looking at your email. Like if I want to see the email of my sales reps today, I'm gonna have to be like, hey Sean, what's your email password? It's like, that's not a great way for me to do coaching. And I don't think, at least I haven't heard of anybody who's doing anything around coaching the content of the email and the follow-up that you're doing.
Vendasys does a little bit with it. So,
Vendasys.
they, for example, one of the things that they talk about is when you send out a date and time, when you're asking for the meeting, they say you use the date, the actual date of the call, and two different times. So, date Tuesday, 8:25 at 4 p.m. or Thursday, 8:27 at blah 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 Eastern Standard Time, their standard time of where it is. So that's part of their onboarding from the CSM is when you go through the process, they do some coaching around what your email should look like and giving the right.
But I feel like even more like someone sends you an objection, and I'm not there to coach you on the response, and I'm probably never going to see your answer to that. I'm just going to hope that in the sales meeting, someone goes over how to respond to that, and you figure it out. But there's very little coaching happening, and the bulk of your communication is happening in email. No one's like looking at it and being like, oh man, you totally blew that response. You answer it like this. And that's a scary, it's a scary proposition that we're not coaching.
Or just pick up the phone.
So then do you track the conversions from emails where you get, say, calls set up, your SDR gets calls set up versus how many emails get set up for dials?
We
And
do.
if so, what is the gap then? And because I think you're right. With email, you don't get a lot of coaching around that, and I feel like the reason being is because you don't get as many appointments set.
So I know we track this, I don't know the number. But I guess more of my concern is around like once the deal's in play, what you're doing to like your follow-up, your questions, the PowerPoint you send, the deck you send. Like I got involved in one of these and the deck was atrocious.
Yeah.
And I thought like it was bad. It was like, you know, in Step Brothers where they're like, investors, you. And it's like this awful deck, like it was like that. And I saw it and was like, I just assumed they knew how to do a PowerPoint. I was like, do you not know how to, did you go to college where they teach you how to do that? They taught me how to do that in college. He was like, I don't know. No, I don't know. And so it's like opportunities like that I think get missed because you're not like all up in their business.
On the conversions, we use SalesLoft right now, actually piloting that one currently. And so in the first month of launch, in the month of July, and Henry's got a 10:20 flight, so
I've got 10 minutes.
make sure we ring the buzzer.
And I don't have my
quarter
ID,
past.
so I have to.
He got through the airport without his wallet.
I don't have
and
my
got a
wallet.
rental car.
Chad paid for dinner.
So we started tracking the SalesLoft email cadence using the Topo recommended 26 touches in 24 days. That was their recommendation after they worked with all our departments. We're going to change after we monitor it because mid-market, majors, and enterprise may need a different touch strategy by different account sizes. But in our first month, you know, how many sales reps does it take to screw in a light bulb? That's what I was trying to figure out in month 1 of July. Well, it turns out it took 250 SalesLoft cadence steps to get one up. And what's interesting is 6 out of 8 for my team were created from email and only 2 from the phone. And I'm a phone guy.
Yeah.
So
It's a phone company.
2/3 of the meetings were booked from this a phone company. So to your point, getting in the email and understanding the cadence and the conversions is equally as important to the voice these
Yeah.
days.
I agree with that. I think where you'll see like the bots being effective, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes left. We've got celebrity Henry Schuck on the stage. This is extremely valuable for me personally. I hope for all of you. What final question? Let's have maybe 2 more questions and then parting thoughts.
That invigorating. I just covered everything.
We got it all.
I always like to ask kind of an end question, but if anyone else has questions, please chime in. But anything that you've read recently that's been inspiring or interesting to you?
Yeah, I saw that. I read Good Boss, Bad Boss. It's by Bob Sutton. He's a Stanford professor, and it's really, really good. It's really good. I bought like 20 books. I just haven't read any of them except for Good Boss, Bad Boss. And if you have, he has a pod. If you go to Apple's podcast and type in Bob Sutton, there are a couple things where the Stanford Graduate School has some stuff where he's spoken, and those are fun to listen to. He just boils down like management concepts that are backed by a ton of research into really simple snippets, and it's really good.
So I do have a thank you. I want to make sure maybe we do need to break soon so people can talk to you, but I do want to give you something.
I got a gift.
A book.
Is it signed?
No, this is the new one. So this
Awesome.
is Sales Hack number
Thank you
2.
very much.
And then Henry, when I became a customer, sent me a headset because he sees me travel all the time. So this is for
Awesome.
you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Are we not doing the we gotta get this on the live stream. The keep calm and let Chad handle it. I
Oh my
think.
gosh. That's really good. And I have, thank you, John. I appreciate it. I have 2. Has anyone used DiscoverOrg?
Yeah, we do.
Yep, great. Here you go. Oh, they're like large. Do you have
I have it.
someone who can fit into a large? Do you have someone who can fit into?
Thank you so
There you go.
much. Very
That's
nice.
So thank you to Henry Schuck for coming out. I want to make sure we have at least 5 or 10 minutes of mingle time. So thank you, Henry.
So, another amazing, evening of sales talk. Thanks a lot to Chad for helping us moderate this and getting Henry out here. And again, thank you to Henry for coming out. Chris, thank you to Term Scout again for the frothy beverages. They come through every single sales meetup, so we really, really appreciate that. Chris might be a guest speaker coming up sometime soon. I'm just going to put that out there. So, love having CEOs here. But I want to also stress to everybody that's coming, if you guys find this useful, please, I know you get the emails from us, but please share it so we can start building up this community. Because the more we get people in here that are super smart like all of you, I mean, I think this is actually the first time we've seen more people from different businesses, which actually really encourages me. I love seeing people from different businesses and hearing about what you're doing in your organization, because it just helps us all get better in the game out here. And Denver's such a great market. Is it not? I mean, it's blowing up out here. So really, really excited about that. So please go ahead and share and bring some people with you next time. All right. And if we need to get more Subway, we'll get it. Chris will bring more beers. So. But again, thank you guys so much. Thank you all for coming out and helping with this community as we continue to grow it out. So thanks again. We'll see you guys.